What's up everybody, welcome back to Nintendo Land, and once again today we have another Mario Maker 2 video from Pyram's Creations, and he's created yet again another series of bosses from a Mario game, this time being Super Mario Galaxy 1. So, if you guys haven't seen my others, I did videos on Mario 64 bosses and Mario Sunshine bosses, so feel free to check those out, and feel free to play these levels if you want to before watching. The code is in the description down below. If you enjoy this video, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Mario Maker and Nintendo in general. Thank you guys, and let's get on to the bosses. The first boss we have is Dino Piranha. We have to break open the egg, and we fight this contraption, which is Dino Piranha, and we have to bounce back and forth and hit these blocks in order to get a shell to defeat this guy. Next up we have King Caliente, and it's kind of cool how they gave him a mouth of donut blocks and it kind of shoots out bob-ombs and you have to keep throwing it back at it, just like the game where you play a big game of volleyball with the thing. Next we have Mandibug's Stack, which was a very easy boss in the game, but I love how they represented it here with these two Buzzy Beetles standing on top of each other. It's perfect. Next up we have Bugaboom, the giant beetle flying around the giant tree, and we use Iggy for this. So this is very interesting. After the first time you hit it, it causes it to break these blocks, giving it a clown car so it can fly, just like Bugaboom trying to hit you around this tree, which I thought was an amazing idea. Another one of my favorite recreations they did was Mega Leg. Mega Leg is this giant robot created by Bowser and Bowser Jr., and you can see this giant foot stomping and raising and lowering, and I just love it. You have to scale this giant thing and eventually make your way up the leg and up the main part of the body, eventually all the way to the top of the head in order to break in and get the Power Star, which is literally an amazing recreation. Next up we have Trantox, the giant poisonous disgusting spider, and you have to go along this rail of webbing that they created in order to hit these different blocks and eventually break your way into the spider. Next up, we have a battle with Camella, which I thought was pretty cool, but the second battle is just amazing to me. But this one was just pretty basic. You got 2 Magic Koopas with wings, which means you have to hit them both 2 times each. But they also kind of played me in this level and completely trolled me because I also collected the red coins, which actually led me into a death room. Goodness gracious. Now we have Top Maniac, and with Top Maniac, you had to keep bouncing him on the spikes of the room. This time you have to keep bouncing Lemmy back and forth in order to hit him with the bombs at the top of the screen. Now we have a battle with Bowser, the very first one in fact, and this is probably one of the most interesting ways I've ever seen to defeat Bowser. Normally you just hit him with stuff or wait for him to jump off the platform and kill himself pretty much, but this time you put on a spiked helmet and kind of bounce him to the other platforms, which I thought was an amazing idea. And you had to keep kind of bouncing him around and eventually knock him off the platform unless you end up killing him with the spiked helmet, which is just a great idea. Next up, we have Boulder Geist, and you have to throw bombs through its mouth in order to hit him and eventually break him apart. And there's 2 phases. The first one is just throwing the bomb and kind of breaking apart the middle of him, and the second phase is actually breaking his hands and getting through his hands as well. And then you get to even see a little third phase where he actually blows up and you can see his little ghostly form with his little uvula hanging. This is probably one of the most chaotic bosses. This is Bowser Jr.'s airship fleet, and you have to kind of throw a shell into a specific spot in order to go inside the ship and hit Bowser Jr. Now that sounds dandy, but there are a million cannons shooting at you while you're doing this, and it might be kind of tricky to figure out what to do exactly the first time, but once you figure it out, it's not too bad. It's just a lot of dodging things. Thankfully, in this kind of aspect of stage design, everything's moving very slowly and the gravity's kind of decreased for all the enemies, but it's still a really cool design. Next up we have Baron Burr, and you can see a snowball locked behind a cage. We'll eventually have to get that, but we have to make our way all the way up the ice mountain in order to get into a conflict with Baron Burr, which will eventually allow us to hit a switch, which can let us go back down to the cage, get a fireball, and start breaking Baron Burr apart. I think this is an amazing recreation. Now we battle Major Burrows, and we have to take out a bunch of moles before we actually get to Major Burrows himself, which I think is a pretty cool design, him just wearing a spiked helmet. But it also took me a very long time to figure out exactly what to do here. I just didn't think to slide into him. It's just something that didn't pop into my head, and for a while I was trying to figure out what to do. But it's a very fun boss fight for sure. So Kingpin was the most annoying boss for me in this, because if you failed the boss after this, you had to go back and do this again. It was just so long and tedious. You have these bone fins kind of just going back and forth with wings, and they're very fast with these wings, and they'll charge you quick. But obviously you have Kingpin, which is on this cloud underwater. I didn't even think you could do that, and he's kind of moving back and forth pretty fast. So it is kind of a threat, but you have to collect these red coins for one key, and then the other key is hidden inside him, which you eventually have to move some snake blocks and get a weapon with, which can be very difficult. I don't know why they requested 2 keys so bad, but I understand, you know, it's to get throughout the level and explore everything, so it's not a terrible boss fight, but it was just kind of frustrating to me for a while. We now have our second fight with Bowser, and this time he has a buddy with him. Bowser is riding on top of Morton, which makes this a lot harder, and the gravity is not stricken. So this time you actually had to bounce Bowser, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You have to bounce him to each individual area, which I love how they have different themed planets and areas that you can bounce into, kind of like the final boss. It's a great idea. Also, Bowser loves to jump up high and stomp a lot, and I think Morton's a perfect idea to use him in this boss battle. Now we're on to our last group of bosses, and starting off with the Undergrunt Gunner is this giant Mounty Mole inside of a tower shooting cannonballs, and you have to make your way all the way to the top of the tower, all the way to the other side of the tower, in order to hit a switch to enter the inside and kill the Mounty Mole. And there is a phase 2, which is a lot harder. We then break into another egg to fight fiery Dino Piranha, which this time we have to go back and forth hitting switches in order to slowly drop this guy as fire goes back and forth throughout the stage, which I think is a cool, unique boss battle. It's kind of the same to do the exact same thing you did with the first Dino Piranha, so this one kind of changes things up a little bit and keeps you on your toes. We then have another battle with King Caliente, and we have to keep throwing bob-ombs at him once again, but this time he's shooting so many things at us, from spikes to chain chomps to lava bubbles, and we have to keep playing volleyball with them, throwing things back until eventually we get the key. Now we have another quick battle with the Undergrunt Gunner. All we have to do is hit the P switch and come back and hit him. Now this section is probably one of my favorites out of all the bosses. It's just done so well. You first kind of come out of the water like you do in that creepy cave, and you come all the way up to this ghost ship, and of course to fight Camella, and this time it's a very interesting boss fight, and you have to kind of go up and hit her. You have the Magic Koopas kind of trying to hit you once again, while Camella is at the top, and you have to get a shell in order to throw it up and hit her to bring her down to hit her once again. But you're still not done. There's a phase 2 where you have to fight her up in the crow's nest. We have another battle once again with Top Maniac, but this time we're in this floating space and kind of swimming through space, and we have to keep bouncing this thing upward. I like the idea here, but generally it's just extremely easy. All you gotta do is just keep bouncing from underneath it, and eventually it'll blow up from different bob-ombs flying by. This last Bowser boss fight can be tedious, let me tell you. You first have to start off in phase 1 by following this piranha plant as it's shooting fireballs at you on this rail. I don't quite get the reference, but yeah. Then come face to face with Bowser for the third time, and these little blue snake blocks on the ground are like the blue glass domes that you have to break in order to have Bowser jump into them, which I think is a great idea, and I almost wish they just kind of repeated this 2 more times, plus something that they did already by having me kind of bounce Bowser across the stage, which was a great idea. But this next phase was a little weird. You're in this room with tons of fireballs all over the place, and I'm not 100% sure how this references the final boss. Maybe this is just kind of a unique thing that they created, but it's really kind of annoying to me. I don't know. I just had to keep trying to get underneath Bowser, and eventually you can cheese it and just kind of pin him against the wall and just keep hitting him from underneath, and then eventually he'll die, and I just don't understand like what was the point of the boss. I don't know. I like what the bosses were doing before because they were very unique, but this time there's no real way to bounce Bowser anywhere or do anything with him. And And then you have a final chase sequence with Bowser, which you have to escape and try not to get hit by him until eventually he blows up himself. But that is all the bosses from Super Mario Galaxy recreated in Mario Maker 2. Thank you Pyram again for your amazing levels. I had to be kind of critiqued with some of them because you're so good. I can't just keep saying how amazing you are because these are just too good. If you guys want to check these out, the code is in the description down below. There's so many other games and so many other things that I cannot wait to jump into next with Galaxy 2, Odyssey, and even some spin-offs like Paper Mario I've seen have been created. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoy this video, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. It goes a long way. And I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.